It was interesting, man. So first off, dude's got a compound.
I've heard.
Yeah, he actually purchased a old nudist colony. So
wasn't it
the house? I'm sorry.
Wasn't it a cult too at one point in time?
It could have been. But it's, so it's got just over 7 acres. And so on the property, he has the main house, and what he uses for the studio, it looks like it used to be like a chapel almost. It's got these very, very extremely high vaulted ceilings with actual skylights in the, in the vaulted part of the ceiling. And then, there's, a kitchen and, like 3 or 4 bedrooms. And it works for what he's using it for. But then, of course, he built his workshop, which is a giant pole barn, for lack of better words. It probably has, 32-foot ceilings, where he can go in there, do all of his set, create and all that kind of stuff. And then he's got like a couple other buildings on the property. One, he just keeps all of his stuff in. He's using it like a warehouse. And then there's like a little one room house that he uses, for his wife, for all of her kilns and all of her artwork. She does that stuff there. And it's just like, it's a nice little spot.
Yeah.
Right next to the VFW, right behind the Austin Zoo, or right in front of the Austin Zoo, depending on how you look at it.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it's so close. You can hear lions roaring.
That's cool. Yeah. I've interacted with Brian a little bit on social media. But I wouldn't say he knows who I am, other than he follows me, but he follows a lot of people on social media. But that guy just thinks different.
He does. I don't really follow Brushwood. I don't follow Modern Rogue or anything like that. I'm aware of it. Every now and again, somebody will say, hey, go check this video out. But I don't really follow. So I don't know that independently of Tom saying, hey, you want to go to this? I'll send you, that it would have been something that I would have signed up for. But I am glad that I went, because I did get something out of it. It was nice. And the cool thing was that everyone that was there is actively working on a project at various states. Some of them are just starting. Right. Some have been running for a while and are looking to up level it. But everyone has got some kind of project that they're working on, that hopefully they were able to get something out of the weekend.
I don't watch Modern Rogue. It's not to say if I don't see one on YouTube, I won't stop. But I don't watch Modern Rogue, but I do support him and Justin's podcast, Night Attack. And I don't probably listen to that as much as I should. I can't remember the last time I listened to an episode, but I like both of them so much, I continue to pay them money. Which is maybe not the best fiscal responsibility part of it, but sometimes you support people just because you like what they're doing. And Brian does, his thought process. One, he's extremely open about this stuff when it comes to being transparent, just from what I know, right? And I always appreciate that. And that's one of the things I appreciate about Tom, is when he does office hours, he kind of lays, he doesn't go into salaries and things like that, but he kind of lays the problems out that his business is having, and kind of what they're trying to do to solve that. I find that stuff to be extremely helpful.
Yeah. Brushwood is a open book in that way as well. We're going through stuff in one way. Okay. Is he flexing? And I don't think he is, by just putting his YouTube numbers up on screen, and we're going through, and we're literally doing live experiments with YouTube posts while we're in the class to see what works and what doesn't work type stuff. The dude gets a lot of traffic, man. A lot of traffic. It's pretty impressive. He's a smart guy.
If anybody doesn't know who Brian Brushwood is, he is a magician. He's, like Rob said, a show host. He does lots of things, but the kind of what Brian how he made himself popular, other than the fact that, he's engaging to listen to, and he has a different way of presenting. He shows you how to do the trick. So with Revision 3, and I can't remember what the show on Revision 3 was, but maybe it was Scam School. But
that's where it started. Yeah,
he taught you tricks to win bar bets, which is a great way to interact with people at a bar who, didn't necessarily think that they were going to go out and have a drink and then be on somebody's YouTube channel, But yeah, he shows you how he does the trick, which is kind of sounds like what he's doing here. Is he's showing people how he's been successful.
But yeah, it was an interesting weekend. Met some interesting people with interesting projects that they're working on, and I think everybody's ultimately going to be successful. Like I said, it wasn't a large course. Like when Tom went, it was over 20 people. It was 9 folks here this time, including Brian and his assistant. So it wasn't a lot of people, but the difference was that everyone that came to this particular, session were actively working on something, actively working on building something. It wasn't just people who were fans who were like, hey, I'm just coming to support you and come hang out with you for a weekend and have drinks with you. It wasn't that. It was people who were really trying to get somewhere with their ultimate project. So like I said, I learned a lot. We went over like character development, the character diamond type marketing stuff. And, we spent a fair amount of time on that, and it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. His do your weird thing. I'm trying to find it is it on Scam Stuff, or does he have his own website for that?
I'm honestly not even sure, honestly. I've never had to go to the website. It was all stuff that was all emailed to me. So.
He has a Substack. Yeah, here it is.
So, yeah, I'm looking up. The AI overview talks about it, but I don't see a link to it. So I'm not sure where it is.
It's scamstuff.com, and then it's under products, do your weird thing.
Okay. Usually, I'm in the seat of people asking me questions and how did you do this and how do you do that and that type of thing. So being on the other side of the table to where there's someone else who's actually further ahead, who's been doing it longer, who has been doing it at a bigger level than I'm doing it, and been able to ask them questions. That was insightful, because sometimes you think that somebody who is significantly, ahead of you, that they are where you'd like to be in 10 years or something like that. Not even that far. They're a year ahead of you. You think that they've got like some special magic that they've gone through. And what it really comes down to is just consistent. They just consistently put out content over and over and over and over and over again. And you have to go back and you have to test, and you have to understand, well, why did this work? Why didn't this work? And you can't use, just how you feel about something. You need to look at numbers and just, okay, this is working. Why is it working? Okay, this is working too. Why is it working? It's like, okay, there's a pattern here. These things work when we have a good hook. These things don't work when we don't have a good hook. These things work when, the first 3 seconds get you to listen to the next 27 seconds, and that next 27 seconds get you to listen to the next 3 minutes, and that next 3 minutes get you to listen to the next 30 minutes, and then the show ends. There's those type of things, and it's just a consistency of just doing the thing over and over and over again until you actually have data that you can make a decision. Because one of the problems that I think a lot of people have is that they make decisions before they have any data that dictates the decision. We see this in podcasting all the time. Most podcasts fail before they get to episode 4. I mean, over half the podcasts fail before they ever post a 4th episode. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One of the reasons is that podcasting is one of those things where the bar to entry is so low that you can literally trip over it. So because the bar to entry is so low, anyone can literally start a podcast. And because anyone can, a lot of people do. And it was never something that I have to be successful with. I was just kind of kicking the tires around and seeing, is it something that I like? That's a lot of the ones that don't make it past episode 3. But a lot of the other ones is that I've done 3 episodes and my expectations aren't being met. So I'm going to quit and go do something different. And the problem with that is that you simply didn't do it long enough to know whether what you were doing was working or whether what you were doing wasn't working. You don't have any data because you simply just haven't been doing it long enough. So that was something that I pulled out of this, is that you just have to keep doing the thing over and over and over again, and going back and looking at your numbers, not obsessing over them, but understanding what works, what doesn't work, what you can do to improve, what you might want to do more of, what you might want to do less of, what do you go into a new area? Do you take an area away? Those kind of things require reps. And so that, and I've kind of felt like that for a while. So at least seeing that replicated, seeing someone else who's been doing it a lot longer than I've been doing it, or at least at the level that Brian Brushwood does it at, is saying the same thing, was kind of refreshing.
It's interesting that when I talk to bigger creators, right, and some of the struggles that they are having, in a lot of ways, I have the same struggles. They just there's an order of magnitude difference between the amount of stuff that they're dealing with versus the amount of stuff that I'm dealing with. Does that make sense? Like, we're all trying to get more viewers or listeners or people in the community, but if let's say 1,000 people more listen to my show tomorrow than did yesterday, I'd be thrilled. But if somebody that has a big audience, and I will say Mr. Beast, if he loses 1,000 people, he's not even going to notice that when it's 450 million YouTube subscribers.
Yeah, if you're not growing, then something probably isn't right. Now, there is a natural number of people who are going to consume a certain type of content. You're not going to create a show on I don't know. You're not going to create a show on Olympic style water ballet, water dancing, and get the kind of numbers that you would if you created a show on soccer, because the audience is less. But as you're creating that show, the numbers should be going up, regardless of what it is that you're doing. And you just have to be realistic about that. That's one of the things that, we touched on a little bit. It's like, if your show is about X, Y, and Z, as compared to Roman numerals 1, 2, and 3, the audiences are different. So you can't look at this show is growing faster, this show has more audience. Well, is there more audience for that show to have? Is there more audience for that show to grow within than the audience that you're targeting? And that's something that you have to look at as well. And that's something that we've talked about too. Yeah.
And I don't know, growth in podcasting ebbs and flows for sure. Like I will have, my podcast numbers, and I don't know if you see this in your stuff, Rob, start to pick up when everybody goes back to school. But when everybody gets out of school, like at the beginning of June and late May, my numbers start to dip for about 3 months. So there's also the thing to consider is the ebb and flow of what we do. Because when people go on vacation, they should be hanging out with their family and friends, not so much listening to shows. And while the diehards that stick with me through the summertime, I do appreciate, there is something to, especially when you're in that first year or two of podcasting, is like, where did 10% of my audience go? Well, they went on vacation. They'll come back. As a general rule, they'll come back.
Yeah, there definitely is an ebb and flow, as you put it. You're going to see fewer people generally over the summer months than you do in the other 3 seasons. And the reason for that is simply because folks are doing other stuff. If you are driving to work every single day, and you're taking your kids to school, dropping them off, and then going into the office, and that's just what you do every day. And then summer comes and you no longer drop your kids off at school. You now just drive to the office. Even though you're still driving to the office, the amount of time that it takes you to get to the office is less. Therefore, you have less time to listen to a podcast. So simply just changing your schedule and what you're doing can affect numbers if those numbers are being consumed in a car. The other thing is that on the week, in the summer, is that people are on vacation. And as you just said, if you're on vacation for 2 weeks, that could be 10 episodes that you don't listen to of a particular show if they're doing daily shows. That's significant when you start to look at the number of people who are missing 10 episodes across the summer. Those numbers are ultimately going to drop. But the only thing in this, I'll take this back to the thing that I was just in this past weekend. You got to look at your numbers, actually know that. You can't just, oh, this is what's happening, and not actually look at your numbers to confirm that that is what is happening. And that's a very important thing that you shouldn't obsess over your numbers. You don't want to post something and then go click refresh and see the numbers come in. You shouldn't be doing that type of behavior, but you do want to weekly, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually and annually look at your numbers just so you can see where you are, so you can actually make some informed decisions on what do we do to improve our numbers? What do we do to get more listeners? What do we do to get this type of sponsor? That's all based on metrics. Everything in this industry is a metrics driven industry, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. And if you want to play that game, you've got to play that game. There's a lot of folks who don't want to play the game, but want the results as though they are, and it just doesn't work. Yeah.
And if you're new to the numbers, after a while, you'll kind of figure out like the ebbs and the flows. And if you have one particular episode, maybe it's got a catchy title or something that kind of blows up, but then everything tails off after that back to normal. Like you need to be able that. Obviously, that's a signal that maybe you should talk about that subject more when you get that one episode that kind of peaks a little bit. But the other thing is like, if for some reason, let's say you see a dip when you should be seeing a growth or at least some stability, put out a survey to your audience. Ask them, hey, what do you think? How do you like the way things are going? Daily Tech News Show does this. The Twit Network does this annually. They do a survey. Lots of shows do. That is something that I'm looking at doing. I've never done one, so I'm afraid that I'm going to put it out there and I'm going to ask the wrong questions. But at some point in time, I've just got to ask, what people like and what they don't like. And it doesn't have to be a 10-minute survey. It could be a 3-minute survey, but figure out where people are at.
I would strongly recommend for folks who are doing a survey of their audience that the thing you have to understand is that far fewer people than you think are going to take the survey are going to take the survey.
Yeah.
Just know that going into it. So if you're thinking, oh, I get 1,000 downloads every episode, which is really good. You are top 5, half of 1%, podcaster. If you're getting 1,000 downloads an episode and you're doing a couple episodes a week. You're at the top of the list there, not the top of the list, but you are definitely at the top of the list for people who are consuming your content. But you think that because you got, this week I had 2,000 people listen. If I put a survey out, surely I'm going to get 10%. No, that's a dream. If you get 1%, you're actually probably not doing too bad. If you get 2%, you're doing really good. People just don't do surveys because here's the thing. A survey is one of these things that the benefit really is only to the person who put the survey out, that in that case, to the podcaster, to the podcast team that put the survey out. That survey really only benefits them. Now you can say, well, through the long run, through the long tail, it's going to ultimately benefit the user, but it doesn't benefit the user right now. The user just is, I want to hook you up by doing this. And it's not that people are not liking you or not wanting to do your survey. It's just that takes them an extra 3 minutes out of their day when they could be spending that 3 minutes clicking through whatever social media platform they're on, getting those dopamine hits. So if you're going to do a survey, expect far fewer people will actually partake in the survey than actually do. And this even moves into when you look at like polling for like, political polling and stuff like that, you will always go and you will notice that these polls, they don't have millions of people doing them. They don't have hundreds of thousands of people doing them. In many cases, they don't have tens of thousands of people doing them. If you're trying to get a nice national poll, if you get 1,200, 1,500, 2,000 people that do it, you're doing pretty good. And they just extrapolate that out. Now, one of the things, and I actually learned this at this seminar, is that once you get beyond about 1,200, the numbers really don't change much. So, and the polling companies have figured that out, which is why they don't put the expense to go try to do a poll and get 17 million people to do the poll. Exit polls are a little different. These are the polls before you actually go to the, or I should say the surveys before you actually go to the polls and cast your vote. But you're not going to get a lot of people to do them. So, and I can personally attest to this for the shows that I've actually done them on. It's like the first few times, like, oh, wow, I thought I was going to get more people doing it. You're not. So just know going in, you're only going to get a small fraction of your audience that will fill a poll out.
You know, one of the things, because I did say I don't do surveys, but I do kind of, is if I change something on the show or if I talk about something new, I'll ask people to write in, hey, did you like this? Did you not like it? And very often, I don't know if I would get, I don't know if it's more because I really haven't tracked it from an analytics standpoint, but I get a fair amount of people who will email in versus, and let me know what they think. And I don't know if maybe that is maybe even an easier way to do it rather than creating a whole survey. Because what I think of, and I don't know about you, Rob, but what I think of with surveys is I'm like, oh man, like they say it's going to take 5 minutes. It's going to take 15 minutes. I'm just going to end up abandoning it in the middle, you know? So it's kind of like the hardcores are going to stay on, but I've to this point, well, I can't say that. From my best memory, surveys always seem to take longer than I'm told they're going to take. Mm-hmm. And I will fill it out for some people for sure. Like if somebody is a good, gives me good customer service and I get an email survey and all that stuff, I will definitely fill it out. But it's always more time than I want to spend.
Yeah, I have found that because I am definitely a fan of surveys, a fan of polls. You know, I'm a fan of them. They if you have enough of an audience to get a decent sample size, they can tell you an awful lot about who your audience is, what they like, what they don't like. But you are right. Sometimes if you make a change, it's easier to just solicit an email because here's what will happen. Here, you tell me if this is different for you, but in my experience, when you make a change, a lot of people who don't like the change, they will email you and let you know because something changed for them and they don't like it. So they have to speak out. You'll probably get a few people that when you make a change and they really like it, they will also chime in, but that number is going to be a fraction of the people who will tell you when there's something that they don't like. Because if I don't say anything and I'm still using it, I probably like it. I don't need to say anything. But if I was using it and you changed it and I can't do what I was doing, that bothers me enough that I might have to tell you something or just go away.
Yeah.
Hopefully they will let me know in an email that I could go and fix it if it was something that was, that was able to be fixed.
That's true. And if you've built the right community, Rob, like, this is no hate against DJs, right? But there was a certain time when you and I were growing up and the DJ was like super, there was an affect that the DJs put on, right? It was like high energy, but also very polished. You know what I mean? Like that DJ, that's not the real person. Actually, when I was in my early 20s, I was friends with a DJ. And he could not be more different than his on-air persona. Like he was super conservative, smoked pot. It's just like a completely different. He ended up going on at some point in time to be a conservative voice, but that was like years later, right? But he was just like this. He was a little bohemian. Like he had this whole different vibe. And if you saw him, his name was Josh. But if you saw him in person, you would never know it was the same guy on the radio, right? You might recognize his voice because his voice was distinct, but you'd never know. But I would say that people aren't drawn to that fake plastic persona. If you're genuine in your show, if you let people into little bits of things that are going on in your life, if you let people see your mistakes and kind of peek behind the curtain and stuff, they're more likely to write in and tell you, oh, I liked this, even if you don't ask. Like if you give of yourself a little bit to your community, they will. Like I've had more luck than I think I deserve with asking people their opinions, and people will write in with like, oh, I thought this was really good. Maybe you could change this here. Like legitimately constructive feedback. I'm not sure somebody that had that plastic persona. That's just how we'll characterize it. I'm not sure if somebody came on, did a podcast, had that plastic persona, and did not let anybody know kind of who they were. I'm not sure they would get that same response.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I believe that, and this is something that I coach folks on, but what I believe about your persona, your personality, whatever your personality is, let that shine on your show. Because if you are faking it, if you are being someone else on the show, that is mentally draining. That would be like if you're an actor and you have to be in character and you can just never come out of it every time you record. It's probably sustainable for a while, but over time, you're now playing a character and you're not playing yourself. Now, I will say this, and I do believe this. I think that when you are in front of a microphone and you're in front of a camera, you're probably going to be 20% hyped up more than you might be in just everyday walking around. I don't have radio announcer voice when I'm just having a conversation. But there are things that I do in front of the microphone. I will lean in for dramatic effect at times and stuff like that. That's not a natural conversation thing. I'm not going to be standing next to you while we're talking in the hallway and lean in because I'm trying to make a point. I just make the point. That's regular conversation. So, but you still need to be you. You don't want to play the part if the part is you. Just let your personality come through. And I think some folks, they try to please everybody. And when you do that, you can't please everybody. But what you're going to end up doing is not pleasing yourself. And that kind of stinks.
Yeah, it's okay to tell your audience that you're not a fan of something that is popular within your community.
Oh, man. I told people on this week's episode of the Tech John, I'm not a fan of Notion. And, man, the internet is coming for me.
Yeah.
I literally have people say, it's like, you were disrespectful because you had a guest that came on to talk about Notion, Angela Hollowell. So you know her. So Angela Hollowell hosted for us on Monday. She is a huge fan of Notion. I am not a fan of Notion. And man, the internet is coming from me. How can you not like Notion? You're like a tech guy. Notion is like the greatest tool ever. It's like you're using like antiquated old Evernote. Yes, I am. And I love Evernote and have no intention on getting off of this product that I pay entirely too much money for. But it's like, okay, am I going to turn some people off because I don't like Notion? Yes, I am. I don't like Notion. Now I give my reasons. I'm not, there's one thing and, there's one product. It was not Windows Phone, but it was like Windows RT. I just bashed Windows RT. I thought it was a bad idea from the beginning. I simply just did not give it a chance. And then I'm playing the part to where I'm going to be anti-Microsoft Rob when it comes to Microsoft RT. But when it comes to, to me talking about tech, I'm a pretty level guy. But like I said, I told people that I don't like Notion and they are letting me know. Like every show we get, I might get 5-6 emails. I got like 8, 9, 3 or 4 of them are about people. I can't believe you don't like Notion. It's such a great tool.
No, Notion is almost a religion.
And like I said, because I'm saying it now, I don't want people coming for me on this show either. I am not anti-Notion. I am just not the person that I will go build Notion to do what I needed to do when I already have Airtable set up to do exactly what I need Airtable set up to do. And I already have Evernote set up to do exactly what I need Evernote set up to do. And I already have Make, which is something, Make is like, what is it? It's like a Zapier where it's like just middleware where you can actually, do some if then
automation
type logic and stuff with it. But, taking information from one thing to another. I've already got these things set up and they've been working for me the way that they work for me for years. For me to go and have to do all of that in Notion, what will require me going to hire someone to build to build the Notion dashboard for me, or I would have to go spend time learning Notion to be able to do it for myself. And because of the way that my checking is accounted, the way that my checking is connected to my savings and my savings is connected to my second savings account, I would tend to go try to figure it out myself. And it's like that squeeze is not worth the juice. So it's not that I dislike Notion. I just dislike the work that it would take for me to use it effectively for what I do. People don't understand that.
Yeah. I mean, you should use something that works until it doesn't, right? Like, yeah, you know what? There might be something in both of our workflows that could be made easier with a different tool. But honestly, the amount of emotional and time invested meant that you have to go through and make sure that everything all the way from piece A to piece Z works with this tool, and trying to, troubleshoot the things that don't work and the amount of time that takes and frustration. Sometimes it's not worth it. It's not to say that you shouldn't be open to it, but it's okay. If it works for you, it doesn't have to work for anybody else. Now, if you bring somebody else in and they're like, this is definitely not going to work for me, then their negotiation needs to happen. But until then.
Yeah. So I was thinking about something. I have been having a lot of conversations with a lot of people at conference type style things over the last few months. I got one more to go next month, but man, you've seen it. Other people have seen me wear it before on this show and other shows. If you want people to ask you about your podcast, wear a t-shirt that says, ask me about my podcast, because people tend to do what they read when the shirt says it. I'm wearing my shirt that says, ask me about my podcast around Austin, Texas this past weekend. And I kid you not, there was not a time when I walked into an establishment and someone did not ask me about my podcast. And, last week we kind of talked about some of the things you need to do to, ultimately to grow, to promote your show. And one of the best ways to promote your show, and we talked about this just last week, is tell people about your show. And something as simple as ask me about my podcast gives me the ability to do that. At this conference, there was a guy there that went to, who went to Black Hat, the conference, and he actually wore a sign around his neck, kind of like my t-shirt, and it said, teach me something. And he literally had everyone who read that sign at the conference trying to show him something, because he's not a hacker. He was just like, he's on this kick of, I'm just going to as many conferences as I can to just see interesting people and kind of see what the next thing he wants to get into. So he was saying how, he just went to World of Concrete. He says one of the best conferences he's ever been to in his life. He went to Black Hat. He's just going to, he actually met, Brian Brushwood at Black Hat, but he wore a sign, and the sign said, teach me something. That does effectively the same thing as my shirt that says, ask me about my podcast does. It gives someone else the opportunity to come to you and say something about the thing that they, that your shirt or your sign or what have you is saying. And it's just an instantaneous icebreaker. And there's other things you can do within those conversations. But man, a big part of getting someone to listen to your show is just to be interesting. Is just to have something interesting to say that says, I don't even necessarily particularly care about concrete, but man, the way you talk about concrete, I just like listening to you talk. Maybe I can take some cues from the way you're having your talk and use it in something that I'm interested in. And, so I'm a big fan of that, man. I want to have me some more t-shirts printed up with other sayings on them, but will elicit the same type of thing, that when I'm out and about and I'm in the mood to have a conversation about various shows or various projects that I'm working on, I'm going to create some more shirts that are going to elicit those conversations, because man, they work. Man, do they work. They do. I'm going to take something you said and I'm going to kind of veer off a little bit. It is so funny that you mentioned the concrete convention, because I know somebody that has a startup that involves concrete
And just recently I was like, have you seen this convention? You should go to this convention based on your interest. And I don't think they ended up going, but that is not to say that I didn't know that there was concrete conventions that existed in the world, but it's just so funny that there was another person that just went to learn something.
And
like, idea.
Like World of Concrete, that convention is one of the bigger conventions. I mean, it's not CES big or the auto show big, but it's like top 10. I mean,
is that the one in Vegas?
Yeah. So when you think about concrete, everything that is built that is intended to be a permanent structure uses concrete in some form or fashion, even if it's just the cinder blocks that are created, to build with, foundation, floors, if it's commercial building. It's like, concrete is literally in everything. And so, like I said, I didn't have any interest in concrete, just listening to someone else who also didn't necessarily have interest in concrete, but went to, people refer to it as WOC, WOC, World of Concrete. You went to the WOC conference, which is kind of a double negative, but still, you went to, you go to World of Concrete and you just literally, it is CES style convention of people who do stuff with concrete and rebar and building materials and stuff like that. It's pretty interesting. And I didn't even go. I'm just listening to somebody else talk about it.
No, it is fascinating. And I think what led me to the World of Concrete is when we were at CES this last year, I saw signs for it. Because it was right after CES. It was at the end of the month. Mm-hmm. Well, Rob, we have covered quite a bit of information.
This is a good show because we haven't done this in a while, to where we just kind of, I don't want to say ramble, but we kind of just talk about whatever's on our mind. And it's a fun show. It's a way for you. You know what? I've actually had somebody say, you should record that. We should have recorded that conversation. Well, this is what we did. You and I are catching up. I'm telling you about my weekend, and we recorded.
Yeah, early on, we did not record these sessions, but I think that it's beneficial every now and again to just kind of, you got to go to that conference. You're full of good information. This is what Rob and I chat about most of the time. We're not recording. Man,
we're about to finish episode 4. We're about to finish season 4. That's crazy. It feels like it was like last year this time when we started this show. It isn't. It's been several.
Well, and I think, Rob, what we learned a little bit was the breakneck speed that we were doing the first, we'll say, 2 seasons and kind of the 3rd season. Maybe it's not if you have other things going in your life, maybe it's not the best thing to go and try to do, because things come up and trying to get things done, being a little bit more thoughtful. I think this has been a much more pleasant, I don't know if pleasant's the right word. This has been much more relaxed season.
Sustainable is the word, Bodie. Sustainable. Yeah. So anyway, folks, if you are interested in content like this, come check us out at beyondthepost.fm. Bodie and I both have email addresses over there. Bodie at beyondthepost.fm, Rob with 2 B's at beyondthepost.fm. And let me be clear, it is not Rob with 2 B's. Don't spell the whole thing out. It's just Rob at beyondthepost.fm.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for listening.
Have a good one.